Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here again. Thank you to the committee here and my attorneys, of course, from Cohen, and Colapinto. The problem in the world we have today, it's challenging and it's ever-changing for whistleblowers. I think the problem is we need much more synergistic value of coming together as one. So I think the introduction I give to you today for the Right Honourable Baroness Susan Kramer from Richmond Park in the UK is very important, not only because she's an advocate for whistleblowers, but she's an ally of the United States of America. She reaches out and gives us that international perspective that we need outside of the confines of the United States. So please give her a very warm welcome here today. Baroness.
Brad, thank you very much. The privilege is all mine. For those who don't know, I'm part of the upper chamber that's in our parliament in the UK, and I'm one of a group of people who have come together from both houses and all across the political spectrum. Because in the UK, if you think you have a problem with whistleblowing here, you should come and see we have it on steroids, quite frankly. We don't even have a National Whistleblowers Day, and that, frankly, is shameful. We need to recognize our whistleblowers in a way that we never have historically, and we have to provide them with the protection that is necessary. And I say that in this one context, which is, in the end, I would like us to all get to the point where we never have to have a National Whistleblowers Day, because it doesn't actually require courage anymore to be a whistleblower. Everyone that I've talked to who has spoken out has said, I was just doing my job. I was just doing the right thing in the circumstances where I was placed. This should cease to be something that requires you to be a saint, to put yourself and your family through, frankly, what is often a hellish experience. So we need to provide that protection, but change the framework, change the culture. And recognize that whistleblowers are the people who expose what is happening in our society that is wrong, and there is genuine follow-up, genuine action. And no one needs to stand up and put themselves on the line and their families on the line in the way that they certainly have to do today in the UK. I just want to, in the sense of the UK, give you something of a cultural context, and why we have, I think, an even more difficult problem than you have here. That you may think it's lovely sometimes to think in terms of somebody in the House of Lords. I have a title of Baroness. I'm called Lady. You know, it's also part of our dark side and part of our problem, the code of a gentleman. One gentleman doesn't tell on another. I was talking to a very senior regulator who even used the word snitch. I mean, that tells you how serious and deep that attitude is and the way that it is embedded. We also have within our culture this sense that when someone blows the whistle, compensation, that surely can't be appropriate. I mean, you can't reward people, can you, for just doing their job? I mean, absolutely no understanding. And the group that I'm part of is trying to change this attitude and say, look, if you were in a car crash and after that your career was ruined, you would expect to be compensated for the suffering, for the loss, for the damage that's happening to you and to your family. Well, how different is the reward, the incentive, essentially the compensation that whistleblowers have a chance to receive here in the United States? And we should have it in my country. I mean, it is almost shameful that I have to say to people, particularly in the financial services industry where I'm most involved, if you're going to blow the whistle, do it, but make sure you contact the US regulator as well, because you will be eligible for that compensation that you are going to need to be able to lead your life. You're not going to get it in the UK. And the other cultural problem that we have, and it's one that's beginning to change, but it needs that change to happen faster, is our regulators, far less aggressive, far less spine, far less iron in the spine than you have here in the United States. And my example is when I talk to people in the States, when a regulator comes in, a sort of tremor runs through the organization. When I'm in the UK and the regulator comes in, somebody goes off to make the tea because a friend is arriving. It's really an absolutely impossible situation that whistleblowers then find themselves thrown into. Now, despite all of that, the UK in 1998 took a step that, in a sense, put it in a leadership position within continental Europe that's on whistleblower rights. We brought in legal rights and protection for whistleblowers in an act called the Public Interest Disclosure Act. And we have rather complacently considered that to be groundbreaking and to put us in a position of leadership. It's overtaken even now by acts within the European Union, a draft directive that will greatly expand rights and protections for whistleblowers, and we haven't even caught up with that kind of change. But I say that to you in the sense that there is this growing recognition and some progress. Now, the group that I'm part of decided that the first thing we needed to do was be a voice for our whistleblowers. So we gathered 400 pieces of evidence through surveys and face-to-face meetings. And we've used that to try and present a report. If you want to find it, it's on our website, not difficult to find, called The Personal Cost of Doing the Right Thing and the Cost to Society of Ignoring It. And we've realized that within our own system, we are so legalistic, cumbersome, fragmented, and in a sense obsolete. It is nearly impossible in the UK, if you need to blow the whistle, to work out who you can talk to and be protected, and even more difficult to work out who you can talk to who will actually try and do something about it, which is what every whistleblower I speak to says. It's the action that I want. That's the follow-up that I want. It's to make a difference that I need. And there's a complete disconnect, therefore, between what we have on paper and what actually happens. We don't even have a sensible definition of whistleblowing. We protect a far too narrow a group, even with the laws that we have. And we have an inequality of arms. I don't know how much this is an issue for you here in the United States. I think much less of one. But in the UK, the institutions and the employers quickly turn this into an employment issue. They either deny promotion, opportunity, they may fire people, and suddenly it ends up in an employment tribunal and becomes all about the whistleblower. Should they have been fired? Shouldn't they have been fired? The whole thing should be about the issue, the safety, the abuse, the misuse. And all of that gets whitewashed and put aside. And in our cases, a poor whistleblower trying to raise the money from friends and family, maybe through crowdfunding and other sources, up against an institution that can put huge amounts of money to delay, to threaten, to make life near impossible. Inequality of arms, completely unacceptable. And what we have to get to in the United States, the situation you have here, where at least your regulators can sue on your behalf rather than leave you always abandoned to try and take these battles on alone, supported perhaps by civil society, but with extraordinary difficulty. We also suffer, and I don't know if, again, you have this in the United States, some non-disclosure agreements. Whistleblowers get pressured into settling, and then in that settlement, they have to sign a gagging order. So the public never gets to find out. Very often the regulators never get to find out, and we have to change all of that. Our first step in trying to do this, we think it's probably very difficult to get movement from the government, but we're going to try from within our legislature. And we're looking above all for an independent office of the regulator who will sit in an overarching position and triage all of these problems, a safe space that anyone blowing the whistle can go to, understand what their situation is, get the kind of backup and support that they need, and that by perforce, that the various regulators and enforcement agencies are meant to listen to. And these non-disclosure acts, those have to go, should never exist in this situation. And we want to use your examples to try and demonstrate that compensation makes a real difference. That if you're going to have your life wrecked, at the very least, you should have a way to continue to put food on the table, a roof over your head, and to somehow be able to thrive under the pressures of whistleblowers. So thank you for being willing to come and talk to us. People like Brad have been to the UK. It makes an enormous difference to us. And I think if we can try and do this on an international basis, then we find ourselves in a position where we can change that culture and achieve our eventual goal of saying, blowing the whistle, nothing special, you're definitely protected, there's action. And we, in a sense, never have to have a day like this again, although I have to admit, I'm enjoying every minute of it and learning from every minute of it. So thank you.